Hello YouTube, this is Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review. Now today I'm going to do another American one for you, and this is quite an interesting one to talk about because this was one of the first two big US craft beers that we were really able to get in the mainstream in Scotland. So today I have for you the Brooklyn Brewery's Brooklyn Lager. Now the other beer that I'm referring to there when I say it's one of the big two in Scotland, if you like, is the Sam Adams Boston Lager. Like I say, these were the first two American craft beers, if you like, that we could get quite easily in the supermarkets and things over here. But I actually really like drinking the Brooklyn Lager and the Sam Adams. There's a pub in town has both of them on tap, and I really like getting a few pints of those when I go to the Metalhead bar, the Moorings bar if you're in Aberdeen. Check it out if you are here. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews, I'll just take you through a little bit of a history of the brewery. This is another quite interesting one to talk about. I quite enjoyed researching this one for you, but if you are simply just interested in the tasting of this beer, then feel free to fast forward towards the last few minutes of the video and you will catch that particular segment. But anyway, one of the co-founders of the Brooklyn Brewery is Steve Hendon, and he was an Associated Press correspondent for a number of years. But in 1984 he returned to the US from a 6-year stint reporting in the Middle East, and he settled on his return in Brooklyn's Park Slope neighbourhood. But while in the Middle East, Steve had become really interested in home brewing after meeting many diplomats who brewed their own beers in countries like Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, where the alcoholic beverages, of course, were completely forbidden due to the Islamic law. But along with his downstairs neighbour Tom Potter, Steve quit his job and founded the Brooklyn Brewery. And they actually, in the early days, they commissioned 4th generation German-American brewer William H. Moeller to develop the recipe for this Brooklyn Lager, and that was outsourced to Utica, New York, obviously of course because in the early days they had very limited resources. But Moeller's grandfather in fact had brewed beer in Brooklyn many years previously. There was quite a thriving brewing industry in Brooklyn, I believe it was in the 1800s, but he basically left his brewing books to his sons and his recipes, and this basically passed down the family to William Moeller. But it was very difficult in the early days for Hendon and Potter. They found that many of the New York distributors were controlled by the big national beer breweries, and they weren't really interested in taking on some of the smaller brands. But they also hired in the early days Milton Glaser, who's very well known having designed the I Love New York logo, the thing that you just see all the tourists wearing and stuff like that. But he designed their bottle art and their brewery logo for them back in the early days. And after advice from Sophia Collier, the founder of the Soho Natural Soda Company, the pair bought a van and a beverage truck, and they actually began peddling the beer from store to store on their own. Now at this point crime was very high in New York City, and in the early days both Hendon and Potter faced burglars, armed robbers and mob connected people who wanted to take a piece of the brewery for themselves, basically trying to intimidate them and stuff like that, if you like. But the New York taverns were also very sceptical because the price of the Brooklyn beer was almost the same as that of the premium imports, but this beer of course wasn't very well known in the early days. But moving on to 1994, the company hired respected New York brewmaster Garrett Oliver, and he designed and planned their new Brooklyn Brewery, their new facility in Brooklyn itself, and he was to oversee the production in Utica as well. And Garrett is also the editor-in-chief of the Oxford Companion to Beer, and he's also authored a book entitled The Brewmaster's Table. But this new brewing facility that I mentioned was opened in 1996 by Mayor Rudy Giuliani, and he also poured the first official glass of the first Brooklyn beer, the Brooklyn Vice. But since then Garrett has developed many award-winning beers. This brewery is a very highly award-winning brewery itself. This beer has actually won quite a few gold medals and things like that. But in 2003 the partners decided that the company had grown sufficiently, had grown to the volume where they could be a big client on the books of any distributor. So Tom and Steve sold their distribution division to two large New York wholesalers who had rejected them 15 years previously, and their distributor today is Phoenix Beehive Distributors, who also distribute Miller beer, I believe. But at this point Tom, who had been running the distribution business for 15 years, sold his share to the brewery, his share in the brewery to David Ottaway, who was a good friend of Steve's and had been a very early investor in the brewery. But Tom now actually runs a distillery called the New York Distilling Company that does a lot of spirits and things like that in Williamsburg. But David Ottaway's sons Eric and Robin had run the Boston distribution network for the Brooklyn Brewery before this, and the Ottaway family did have roots in Brooklyn. Their grandfather, General John Blackburn Woodward, unsuccessfully stood for mayor of Brooklyn in 1885, and he was also the board president for the Brooklyn Institute of Arts and Sciences for a number of years. But Eric today is the brewery general manager, and Robin is actually the sales manager. But today the brewery are apparently overseeing major expansions, and this will apparently double their capacity with the creation of the new Rolec brew house, and they hope that this will allow Garrett and his team to experiment and produce many new different recipes. And apparently the first of these experimental beers is going to be a spicy saison that's called the Brooklyn Radius, and it's actually brewed exclusively for the borough of Brooklyn in New York. But nowadays their beer is apparently available throughout 25 of the United States, and it's also available in 20 foreign countries. In 2013, funnily enough, is their 25th anniversary, and they've introduced the Silver Anniversary Lager, which is a double bock version of this Brooklyn Lager that was introduced back in 1988. So that's quite a cool history of the Brooklyn Brewery for you there. But I'll just tell you a little bit about their other beers as well. They've got 3 ranges here as far as I could figure. They've got the Perennials, which is basically a core range if you like, and this is a member of that. But it also includes the Brooklyn Brown Ale, which is a damn fine ale, I have to say. There's the East India Pale Ale, the Pilsner, the Pennant Ale, and the Brooklyn Blast, all in that perennial range there. They also have some seasonals. They have the Black Chocolate Stout, the Winter Ale, the Monster Ale, the Dry Irish Stout, the Summer Ale, which is quite a nice one, I've had that before, and they also have the Oktoberfest and the Post Rock Pumpkin Ale, and I have a bottle of that in my cupboard that I'll review for you at a later date. But they also do some different big bottles, and this includes the Silver Anniversary Lager that I mentioned a minute ago. They have one called Local 1, which is a Belgian style golden strong ale, Local 2, which is another Belgian style one, but this time a dark ale. They have Sobache Ace, which is a farmhouse style beer, and they have Green Market Wheat, Bamboozle, and Brooklyner Schneider Hopfen Weiss, which is a Weissbock. That sounds quite an interesting one. I'd love to try that. But anyway, that's their ranges of beer. As I say, they've got the 3 ranges: perennial, seasonal, big bottles. But anyway, let's get on to the tasting of this beer itself. I'm quite interested to actually do it for a review now, but I'll just tell you a little bit about the beer itself. This is a 5.2% American Amber Lager. I've also seen it described as a red lager on some of the beer forums and things like that, but it's hopped with Hallertau, Mittelfrühe, Vanguard, and Cascade hops, and it uses American two-row malts, and they describe this beer as being a dry hopped Vienna style beer. So this one's quite interesting. As I say, I really like this beer, but let's get this guy open and get on with the tasting. There we are. Quite a bit of steam coming off this one, as you can see as I open it up, but let's just get this guy poured and see what it's like. It's actually got quite a strong aroma, this one. You can smell it just as you get it coming out of the bottle there. There we are. As I say, this is one of the premier American craft beers that we had in Scotland here, so it's really cool to be doing a beer review of this one for you. But anyway, let's just get this guy set back down. But anyway, as you can see, it's a really nice sort of dark coppery, well, not really dark coppery, but it's a nice sort of coppery reddish amber colour for you there. Has a bit of finger, just under a finger of head on it there. The head is quite frothy. There are some bigger bubbles there, as you commonly get. There's actually quite a bit of visible carbonation in this one. Very small bubbles coming up from the bottom, just to the bottom of the head there. Let's give this guy a wee smell. There's quite a lot of bready malt on the nose, kind of a slight hint of toasted grains actually. And the hops, you can pick up the sort of grassy and floral character of the hops too, but there's also some kind of a grapefruity citrus element to it as well, and I think there's a bit of caramel maybe in there too. It's quite a sweet bready smelling lager, this one. Really nice smell to it. It's interesting to take in, having had this beer a number of times, and actually take it in and properly look for the aromas, I would say. It's quite a complex one, and with it being a lager, of course, it's quite interesting that it's so complex indeed. But anyway, let's give this guy a taste. As I say, one of my, probably the first exposure I had to American craft beer was one of these ones. Yeah, the first thing that comes in with this one is the malts. You're getting a lot of malts in the very beginning of this. Yeah, the malts are coming in, you're getting the sort of bready flavours, and you're also getting that toasted character to it as well. You're actually getting a little bit of caramel character, I think, within that sort of bready, malty, toasted base. Really nice entry to the beer. But yeah, after the malt character kind of goes away, you start to get the sort of grapefruity citrus notes coming out, and you're also getting the sort of There is a little bit of spice to that, I would say, and you're getting the grassy notes coming out, and it comes out quite bitter on the finish. It's a really, really nice complex lager, this one. There's a lot to the flavour. Yeah, you're getting that big malty base, and then you're getting it sort of breaking down into then the sort of hops coming out with there as well, and you're getting that nice sort of fruity, spicy, grassy elements to it as well. Really, really nice beer, this one. As I say, I drink this quite a lot and I really enjoy it. In terms of the mouthfeel, I would describe this one as a light to mid-bodied beer. It's quite smooth, but it's quite crisp at the same time. The carbonation is quite active. It's not it doesn't have really an oily mouthfeel or anything. It is quite a smooth one, I would say, but this is a really, really nice lager. I mean, if you haven't tried this before, those of you watching within Scotland, it's very easy to get. Definitely give it a try. Those of you watching in the US are probably like, oh, we've had so much of this beer, we don't like it, do something else. But I really like this beer, and as I say, it's interesting for me to actually do a review of it because I drink it so often, and having to pick out the different individual flavours and stuff like that, it makes you think about it more. But as I say, I really like this one. As I've said in the video, very nice bready malt opening with a kind of toasted grain character, some caramel to it. It has the nice sort of citrusy, grassy, fruity flavours that come out and the hot bitterness at the end. Light to mid-bodied, quite a little bit of active carbonation, quite a smooth mouthfeel overall. But anyway, I hope this beer review has been informative for you. I've quite enjoyed doing this one. As I say, one of the beers that I drink quite often, so it's cool to think about it again. But as I say, I hope it's been informative for you. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. I hope you're enjoying these beer reviews. But thanks again for your support. Please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff you've been watching. Goddard Radio Moscow. I think I'll do a Greek beer for you tomorrow. I've actually got a Greek craft beer in my cupboard that I think I'll do for you, so hopefully you'll tune in for that. But thanks again for watching. You've been watching Goddard Radio Moscow, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Cheers.